Okay, we are continuing following as a sermon series the television series that's on NBC about AD, the Bible Continues. And I hope that you had a chance to watch it last Sunday. And if you didn't, I'll have a short video clip recap of it. Tonight they are starting with the ascension of Jesus, and they're going to be in the book of Acts, chapter 1 through 10. So if you want to read along, it'll give you a little bit of a preview that's happening. And watching it last week was it was pretty well done. It was pretty accurate. And hopefully they will continue along the same lines. And so here's the recap of last Sunday's episode.
Once the Romans realize your message remains a threat, they will root you out. Nazarene was only ever flesh and blood. I want you to post temple guards at Arimathea's tomb. It must remain sealed.
On that day, Christ will rise from the dead.
I will post a small guard outside the tomb.
Romans seal have been broken. The tomb is now open and the Nazarene is gone.
What do you mean, gone?
So, as you watch this series, it's looking at the life of Jesus, but it's looking at the life of Jesus from the viewpoint of Pontius Pilate and his struggles, the Jewish priests and their struggles and viewpoints, and then the viewpoint of Peter and John and the disciples and their struggles with what has happened and how they're trying to put everything together. And so, again, tonight it'll be, well, they're going to show the recap, but what last week's at 8 o'clock, and then this week's at 9 o'clock, and then next week's sermon will be on the Ascension. Today's scripture reading is taken from John chapter 11, verses 25 through 26. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me, even if he dies, will live. Everyone who lives and believes in me will never die, ever. Do you believe this? Well, for nearly 30 years, Jesus has been a carpenter, working away in the woodworking shop. Probably that was first his stepfather Joseph's workshop, and then Jesus was working. And never a crooked table leg went out of this shop. He was good at what he did. But Jesus was more than a master carpenter. He was also God disguised. Who he was and his power was a best kept secret for nearly 3 decades. But all of that changed the day Jesus turned water into wine. And Galilee would never be the same. The world would never be the same. We would never be the same. And the wine wasn't just wine, it was fine wine, the best wine. There are at least 34 separate miracles recorded in the Gospels. And we know John's Gospel tells us that many others were not recorded. And in John's Gospel, he focuses on 7 miracles, each one showing a different aspect of Jesus' miraculous power. Of course, John chapter 2, the miracles begin with Jesus turning water into wine. In chapter 4, Jesus heals a nobleman's son from long distance, showing his lordship over geography, over distance, over time. So it doesn't matter that Jesus is in heaven at this time. That is not a barrier to him doing miracles for us. In John chapter 5, he shows his mastery over time. Things that seem permanent are not. He reversed 38 years of suffering, of pain, with just one command. In John chapter 6, Jesus feeds the 5,000 with two loaves and 5 fish. See, in God's kingdom, 5 plus 2 doesn't equal 7. It can be so much more. It's not limited by the physical things at hand. In John chapter 9, there's more to the miracle than meets the eye. The healing of the blind man. He just doesn't heal a blind person's eyes. He creates a new pathway from the eyes to the man's brain. Jesus is called the grave robber because of his work on the cross. But we first witnessed the work of the grave robber in the raising of Lazarus from the tomb after being dead for 4 days. Jesus calls him to come out. It shows us what will be happening with Jesus in just a little while. His death, his own death and resurrection. And that's what this last episode of AD focused on, the resurrection of Jesus. And the reaction of the people, the 3 main people, the Jewish leaders, the Roman leaders, and the disciples. And what that means and what they struggled with. So the 7 miracles in John's Gospels are 7 signs, and each sign points directly to Jesus. But let me offer you a word of caution. Don't seek miracles. Seek Jesus. Our focus needs to be on Jesus Christ. If you follow Jesus long enough and far enough, you'll eventually find yourself in the middle of some miracles. Now, you're still with me at the risk of sounding like a televangelist. You know, those guys with the bad hair and the television shows and send me your money. The risk of sounding like a televangelist. And if you want a miracle, and it doesn't matter whether the miracle is big or small, if you want to receive a miracle, raise your hand. If you want to receive a miracle, raise your hand. See, everybody wants a miracle. I mean, everybody is usually looking for some type of miracle. But here's the catch. Nobody wants to be in a situation that requires a miracle. You want a miracle, but God, I don't want to be in that situation that I need a miracle. But you can't have one without the other. The requirement for needing a miracle is having a problem. And the bigger the problem, the bigger the potential miracle. Now, if the wedding party in Cana had not run out of wine, there would have been no need for Jesus to do what he did. What the bride and groom supposed as a problem was really a perfect opportunity for God to reveal his glory. And nothing has changed since Jesus turned water into wine. Nothing has changed since he has healed a man born blind, or walked out of the tomb after 3 days. He is the God who can make your impossible possible. There's been several Superman movies since, I guess, the original Superman comic came out in the late 30s, early 40s. There was Superman in the Superman movie in the 50s with George Reeves, which became a television series. And then there was the 1978 Superman movie, starring Christopher Reeve. And in that movie, there is a scene where Lois Lane, who is Superman's love interest from afar, is driving through the Nevada desert when there's an earthquake and a crevice opens up and it swallows her car and she's dead. Superman can't get there in time to save Lois Lane. He's busy building a new dam out of boulders to repair the dam that had cracked because of the earthquake, and was busy saving the towns down river. And when he discovers that Lois Lane is dead, Superman gets super angry. And he begins to fly around the earth at supersonic speeds. But he's reversing the earth's rotation. And by doing that, he's able to reverse time. That's why they call it science fiction. And science fiction's a pretty cool concept. I mean, don't you wish that you could turn back time after saying something dumb? Or after you've done something that you wish you hadn't done? Wouldn't it be nice to turn back time? But the problem is, for us, it's impossible. Because time for us only moves in one direction. What's done is done. Some things in life are unchangeable. You cannot unbake burnt cookies. You cannot uncut hair. You cannot undelete documents. You cannot do over running red lights. These are lessons that we all learn, we all experience. And we have to accept them. And sometimes they're easily laughed off after a little bit of embarrassment. But then there are those moments that leave a hole in your heart forever. Like standing at the foot of a casket. Or when it seems that your life is falling apart, or it's unraveling, or it's just not going the way that you had planned. If you answered those phone calls in the night, or you've gotten the lab results back that say that you have cancer, the doctor confirms your worst fears. You know the feeling all too well. It feels like your life is over. It's definitely going to be different. But here's the thing, it's not over until God says it's over. When Jesus walked out of that tomb on that first Easter morning, the word impossible was removed from our vocabulary. And his resurrection is not something that we celebrate once a year on Easter morning. It's something that we celebrate every day in some way. See, the seventh miracle in John's Gospel reveals the true identity, the full identity of who Jesus is. He's just not the winemaker or the one who walks on water. I mean, those miracles are pretty impressive. But he is the grave robber. And he saves his boldest claim for last. John chapter 11, verse 25. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And it is that distinctive claim that sets Jesus apart and puts him in a category by himself. The Son of God. Christianity is not built on a philosophy or a code of ethics. The foundation of our faith has the one fundamental fact. The empty tomb. After cheating death by calling Lazarus out of his tomb, Jesus walked out of his own tomb under his own power. And see, that's the ultimate defense of our faith. There is no argument against it. Jesus rose from the dead. And if the resurrection didn't happen, then Christianity is nothing but one of history's cruelest deceptions. And we're not just wasting our lives by worshiping Him. We're living a lie. But because Jesus walked out of that tomb 2,000 years ago, all bets are off. Or maybe I should say all bets are on Jesus. In an interview with Rolling Stone magazine, U2 lead singer Bono was asked his opinion on Jesus with this question. Christ has ranked among the world's greatest thinkers, but Son of God, isn't that far-fetched? In other words, Jesus is a great teacher, but really, was He Son of God? Was He God? And here's Bono's reply. No, it's not far-fetched to me. Look, the secular response to the Christ story always goes like this. He was a great prophet who had a lot to say along the lines of other great prophets, be they Elijah, Muhammad, Buddha, or Confucius. But actually, Christ doesn't allow you that. He doesn't let you off the hook. Christ says, no, I'm not saying I'm a teacher. Don't call me teacher. I'm not saying I'm a prophet. I'm saying I'm the Messiah. I'm saying that I'm God incarnate. And people say, no, please just be a prophet. A prophet we can take. So what you are left with, he continues, is either Christ was who He said He was, the Messiah, or a complete nutcase. And most people have no problem accepting Jesus as a compassionate healer, or a wise teacher, or a religious prophet. But that isn't who He said He was. He claimed to be the Son of God. And as C.S. Lewis once famously said, Jesus is either a liar, a lunatic, or in fact, who He claimed to be, Lord. And there is no middle ground here. Jesus is either Lord of all, or He's not Lord at all. So which is it? That one decision will determine your eternal destiny. And it will also make the impossible possible. And after declaring His identity as the resurrection and the life, Jesus asked a point-blank question that interrupted Martha's life. John 11, verse 26. Do you believe this? Do you believe this? This was before Lazarus had walked out of the tomb. And Martha answers with a simple profession of faith. Yes, Lord. One little yes can change your life. One little yes can change your eternity. The litmus test is the same now as it was back then. The only question on God's final exam is this: do you believe this? It's not multiple choice. It's true or false. And it's the most important question that you will ever answer. That one question that one decision will determine your eternal destiny. But the good news is it's an open book test. And God tells us the right answer over in Romans chapter 10, verse 9. If you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord, and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. If you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart. Very clear, very simple, very direct. See, the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the position of where our lives should revolve around. It should be the focus of our faith. See, when Jesus was raised and rose from the dead, it changed, redefined reality. See, the resurrection is a history changer. It is a game changer. It is why Jesus can be called the grave robber. But the trick for us is learning how to live. To live as if Jesus Christ was crucified yesterday, he rose from the dead today, and he's coming back tomorrow. The resurrection isn't something that we celebrate once a year by dressing up in Easter clothes and making sure we attend church. It's something that we celebrate every day in every way. The resurrection of dead bodies is nothing short of miraculous. And bodies are going to be raised and put back together when Jesus returns. But the miracles don't stop there. God raises dreams from the dead. He resurrects dead relationships. And no matter what part of you has died because of sin, or suffering, or Satan himself, Jesus, the grave robber, came to give you your life back. On that day of the crucifixion, nobody laughed, nobody smiled. But when Jesus walked out of that tomb, nobody could stop laughing, nobody could stop smiling. Because the grave robber, Jesus, takes back that which has been stolen. And then he gives it back to us with interest. When Jesus died on the cross, Satan sneered. But Jesus got the last laugh. He always does. And if you give him a chance, he will give you a second chance. He will give you your smile back. He will give you your laugh back. He will give you your life back. Do you believe this? If you do, he will make the impossible possible for you if you have faith and believe. Amen.